Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Our program will begin in just a moment. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Our program will begin in just a moment. Good day. Welcome to Advocacy Anywhere, powered by AJC. Advocacy Anywhere is AJC's digital platform that enables you to engage with AJC's global expertise, content, and advocacy from wherever you are. Today's program is brought to you in partnership with Jewish Insider. You can sign up for Jewish Insider's daily kickoff by visiting jewishinsider.com. This AJC Advocacy Anywhere program is historic, as AJC is hosting a head of state for the first time during this global crisis. We are honored to be joined today by His Excellency Luis Lacalle Pou, President of Uruguay, an AJC Project Interchange alumnus who took office on March 1, just before the COVID-19 pandemic arrived in Uruguay. As a democratic country committed to human rights and civil solidarity, Uruguay is a long-standing partner of the United States and Israel. In fact, Uruguay was one of the first nations to establish official relations with the newly formed Jewish state in 1948. In January 2020, Uruguay became the first Latin American country to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of antisemitism. President Lacalle Pou will be in conversation with Dina Siegel-Van, Director of AJC's Arthur and Rochelle Belfer Institute for Latino and Latin American Affairs. After we hear from President Lacalle Pou and Dina, we will take your questions. You may email your questions to questions@ajc.org, questions is plural, or use the Q&A chat feature in Zoom. Mr. President, again, it's our honor to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us on AJC Advocacy Anywhere. And Dina, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Belle. Good afternoon, everyone. Bienvenido, Luis, Señor Presidente Lacalle Pou. Welcome, Mr. President, to this conversation among friends about your remarkable country, its commitment to democracy, and its long-standing relationship with Israel and the Jewish people. What an honor and a treat to have you with us today. Thank you for making time from your busy schedule to join us. I would like to recognize also our good friends, Uruguay's ambassador to Washington, Carlos Janelli, and Yoed Maguen, Israel's ambassador to Montevideo, who are joining us as part of the audience. Mr. President, you will recall that when we last saw each other in Israel in February of 2018, as you were visiting with Project Interchange group, you were about to run for the presidency, and we planned then that upon your victory, we would come to celebrate with you in Montevideo. We were rooting for you not only as a dear friend, an ally, and a proven legislator whose family for generations has embraced shared causes. But during a time when outsiders and critics of the political establishment are in vogue, with mixed results, I must say, you represent a class of young politicians who are indeed insiders. Even as you continue upholding Uruguay's democratic principles and traditions, you are poised to bring about profound changes to better reflect trends and future challenges. Well, Mr. President, you made it. And we were ready to join you in Montevideo a few weeks after your inauguration, when COVID-19 struck and we were forced to cancel our long-awaited visit. I have to say that we were also looking forward to visit two members of your cabinet who are also friends and Project Interchange alumni, your labor minister and your chief of staff. But despite Latin America becoming the new epicenter of the pandemic, you and your government have received accolades for reacting promptly and handling the crisis with scientific rigor, political acumen, and I must say, lots of heart. So today we fulfill our promise. Although virtually, the American Jewish Committee is celebrating with you, wishing you much success at the helm of the Uruguayan nation, and expressing admiration and respect for what you have already accomplished in your young administration. So in this vein, let me ask our first question. How is Uruguay doing today during the pandemic? What are the remaining challenges? What do you foresee down the lane? What is going to happen in the next few days, months?
Good morning, Dina. Good morning for all of you there. I am looking forward to see you down here south in my country. We will make it in a few months. Let's hope so. This is day by day. This is day by day. Every day when we hear the reports about the disease and number of people that are in hospital with the disease, we just see what we are doing, if the things we are doing are all okay. Let's start from 13th March, D-Day here. I was further north in my country, and we heard about the first 4 cases. For us, it was a shock. We were in office for 12 days, and we flew down to the capital city, and we called for an urgent meeting for all the cabinet. And I think that day was very important in what has passed in these 70 days. We decided early some things. We stopped schools, we closed frontiers, and for me this is the most important thing. People used very responsibly their freedom. We didn't do a compulsory quarantine. It's against what I think of humanity, or against what I think of philosophically what people can do. And Uruguayans demonstrated that their freedom was challenged, and they used it well. Since the 13th March down to 13th April, 1 month after Holy Week, Monday, 13th of April, Uruguay closed down. But because Uruguayan understood it had to be like that. For me, it was very encouraging when a government took early decisions, because when the symptoms are there, people understand they need medicine. But the symptom was 4 cases. It was very small. And Uruguayans immediately understood they had to take care, not only of themselves, but of the society. This was once more a discovery of how Uruguayans can do in crisis. And I'm very proud of my citizens, very proud. If we are here now, Nina, it's because of Uruguayans, not because of the government. And that's what is marking our path. So when you ask me what's happening nowadays, but nowadays we're not doing good. We're doing good. We have more than 540 people recovered. Yesterday was the 139 cases from the start, from the peak. We are going down. Yesterday we had 1 case, 1 new case. We have 139 that still are in the disease, but 1 case yesterday. And that made that the government can, with some protocols, start life again. This new normality that we're going to live in the next month, next year, is because of the responsibility of Uruguay. So we started again the construction of housing. We started school in rural areas, and we chose rural areas because they don't have the opportunity to do e-learning, because sometimes they don't have the systems enough to learn. Tomorrow we are having a meeting with the Ministry of Education and the authorities of education to start normal classes all around the country in a few weeks. sports are coming back again. This weekend was the first time that we have some sports. And one thing that for me is very important is that we have a very good group of scientists that gave their knowledge, their time, their heart for work honorably for our country. So now we have not only what we think, what we see as politicians, we have a widespread of what we understand, but now we have scientists in all of the sub-activities, and they're helping us when we restart an area of human activity. They test, they analyze, they use math, and they tell us this was a good thing. So the next time we already have a model to use in other activities. So today, until 7 o'clock in the afternoon, when we receive the new cases and how it's going on, thanks for Uruguayans, not for the government, we are making it really, really good.
We're glad to hear so, and very impressive what you're saying, but it doesn't surprise us because we know that the Uruguayan people are very well known for their civil awareness and their solidarity. So we're glad that that things are there, that they're improving, and we hope that they will continue to improve. Let me pivot now to Uruguay's historical relationship with Israel, dating back.
One thing more, Dina.
Yes, sure, of course.
One more.
Yes, of course, Mr. President.
We had another trouble with Uruguayans around the world. We had lots of people traveling around the world. They couldn't come back because of the closure of the boundaries, the frontiers, and also because the airlines shut up their flights. Yeah. So that was a very difficult issue. And our chancellor did a great job with all our embassies, with foreign governments, and we have already brought back by the government some, let's say, 4,000 Uruguayans around the world, and people are still coming, and that was a good thing, because when you're bad, it's better to be bad in home and away.
Of course, of course. Thank you for adding that, very important. Let me now pivot to this topic, which is of great interest to the hundreds of people who are listening to you today. It has to do with Uruguay's historical relationship with Israel, which dates back to 1947, when Uruguay voted for partition, and also your country's commitment to building the relationship throughout the decades. What is your vision to grow these bilateral ties during your government? And if you can share with us how your visit to Israel with AJC expanded your horizons of collaboration in your government.
I have to divide my visit in political affairs and in faith affairs or emotional affairs. I can't remember a most shocking, that's not the term, emotional time in my life, perhaps when my children were born, what I felt in El Muro de los Lamentos.
The Wailing Wall, yeah. The Western Wall.
I returned to Israel 1 month past that visit with the AJC, and I went to the wall during the night, and I went with a rabbi, a very well-known rabbi from Jerusalem, and it was very, it removed a lot of things, and for me it was once more going back what I was taught, my faith, and the knowledge that there's something bigger. And that for politicians also is a humble way to understand your side. God is not you're not God. And for me it was very nice. From the political side, I remember that meeting with Netanyahu for more than 45 minutes. I remember there was a complicated date. And I thought we are not going to have the meeting. And I remember people from his team coming down to the meeting, and Netanyahu was a little bit late. He had some troubles that day. But that 45 minutes were very interesting because Israel's government was well informed of what happened in Argentine. You remember that my companions were all of Argentine.
We're the lone Uruguayan in the group.
We the lone Uruguayan. And he knew River Plate's affairs. He was very well informed about Venezuelan affairs and the relation with other regimes. He was well informed about the possibility of having some terrorists operating down America, South America. And that for me was very, not only very strong to meet people that are very well informed, but we could speak out about what can be the troubles in the future that we share with Israel and the Jewish community around the world. So I'm looking forward to go back. I love Tel Aviv. I love Tel Aviv. It's a very nice city, very young city, and lots of life. I love Tel Aviv. And of course, we have a very good relationship here with the different Jewish organizations. And every now and then we meet each other and speak about these issues, not only concerning political issues down there in Israel, and our voice in the UN, and our voice in all places, but also of the Jewish community in Uruguay, and what we think and we will be able to do about the menace of terrorism in our region.
Thank you so much. And piggybacking on what you just mentioned about terrorism and the tri-border area that you mentioned that Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about, the dangers of Hezbollah, the threat of Hezbollah. As you know, there are several Latin American countries that have recognized Hezbollah as a terrorist organization: Argentina, Colombia, Paraguay, Honduras, and many other countries around the world, the latest, Germany. Are you considering the possibility of recognizing Hezbollah as a terrorist organization soon?
You know that I can change my opinion. I am in the process of changing my opinion.
For the good?
Let's say 10 months ago, I was asked in a Jewish organization here about this, and my answer was that we follow the UN's list, that Uruguay doesn't have our own list. But I'm looking forward to change my opinion. I cannot assure you now, because I like first to do and then to communicate, but I'm in that process. My answer was no 10 months ago, but I'm looking forward to change my opinion.
That's great. Thank you. It's good to know.
Because when I was asked, since when I was asked to nowadays, some countries also change. I was reading about some South American countries having their own list, and the arguments were very solid.
That's great. Well, we look forward for you to join very soon, very soon. I have a final question before I cede the floor for questions from the audience. I'm sure there's a lot of questions coming from the people who joined us for this conversation. I wanted to ask you about Uruguay's adoption of the working definition of anti-Semitism. The Jewish community in Uruguay is a small community. It's 20,000 people, our partners, friends. They're only 2.5% of the population, and anti-Semitism is relatively non-existent. So why did Uruguay adopt? You're the only country in Latin America that has adopted the working definition of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. What led you to adopt this definition, and do you foresee other countries in the region following your example?
The last part of your question, I don't know. The first part of your question is because Uruguay has a strong tradition of human rights. And the human rights, you don't count them in number, you count them in attitude. It don't depend if the human rights are managed for one person or 1,000 people. It's human rights. And that was a tradition of our country without depending who's in government. We can have a slow, some changes, but that you will always see Uruguay in the first places in these things. And it wasn't my government, and I felt that it represented me.
Well, your moral clarity is very much needed, and if you can influence other countries in the region, it would be very welcome. So, Belle, to you, can we have some questions from the audience, please?
Of course, Dina. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Our first question comes from Jerry in Los Angeles, who says, countries throughout the hemisphere are responding to coronavirus in different ways. And you described, obviously, Uruguay's experience. Some in denial, some with military force and other measures. Is there a broader regional strategy in the works, and how do organizations like the OAS play a role?
Thanks. I love Los Angeles. I went there in March 1998. I'm looking forward to go back sometime. Yesterday, we had here in this room that I am with you now, a meeting with 7 governments of South America. Our neighbors, both Argentina and Brazil, have different strategy concerning the coronavirus, but we have a good relationship with both governments in this issue. We are aware of what's happening in Argentina. We are aware of what's happening in Brazil. Mainly with Brazil, we have cities that people live in one country, work in the other country, go to have lunch to Brazil, come back to sleep, they go to school. In two cities like further north and further east, there we need some strategy of both governments, because people live there by national life. With Argentina, we don't have those limits. We have the River Plate and River Uruguay, so it's a bit different, but we have lots of Argentines that live part of their lives, now they can do it in Uruguay. And during the summertime, lots of people from Argentina and Brazil come to summer resorts. That will be an issue in the next month. We use some airports like Lima, we use the airports of Sao Paulo, we use the airport of Santiago de Chile, and some Guyanas, and the airport from Buenos Aires, to bring back some Uruguayans around the world that came with Argentinian citizens or Brazilian citizens or Chilean citizens. So we are trying to be in contact, I can say weekly, in the presidents, by every now and then, like 15 days. And our councillors, the ministers of foreign affairs, they keep in touch every now and then, nearly daily, because we have some things to work together. With some organizations, well, we are working hard with the IDB. We are working hard with CIF. We are working hard with Fomplata, because we are spending lots of resources because of the crisis. So these organizations, knowing about the trouble and the problems, have opened widely the credit so we can pass through this crisis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tom Kahn, who's an AJC Board of Governors member and co-chair of the AJC Belfer Institute for Latino and Latin American Affairs, writes, Uruguay is showing great moral leadership by fighting for democracy in Venezuela and imposing the Maduro government, which is supported by Iran. Can you share with us your perspective about Maduro and what you think we might see when you think, we might see freedom and democracy for the people of Venezuela?
Unluckily, I don't have the second part of your question, unluckily. And I think time plays against the opposition. The pass of time plays against democracy. We thought, like 6 months ago, that the regime could negotiate an end, but they strengthen, and luckily they strengthen. We call Maduro what he is. We use straightforward the term of dictatorship. And that's what we think about Maduro's government. We used to have, and we still have, a strong relationship with the people from Venezuela. And we are trying to do our efforts as we can in the OAS and in other institutions so we can help. I think that the multiplying efforts, or let's say dividing efforts, as we have at least 3, makes it less effective. We have the Grupo de Montevideo, the Grupo de Consenso, we have another groups, and in the international community don't sit all in the same group trying to be effective. It's much more difficult.
Thank you, Mr. President. Alejandra in New York City asks, can you describe the state of U.S.-Uruguay relations, and can you share a little bit about what are your current priorities in terms of the bilateral relationship?
Bilateral with who?
Sorry, the United States.
Mainly commerce. Mainly commerce. Uruguay is looking forward to open our commerce with all the world. You know, we are historically Uruguay. It's try to be leveled with the big powers. Our first partner in commercial affairs is China. Our second partner is Brazil. And we have strong relationships with the United States. I had the opportunity 2 months ago to do a phone call with President Trump, a short phone call because of a friend in common. And I spoke also with Secretary Pompeo, and we had down here before our assumption, people, very important people from the government of the United States. And we were looking forward, and we'll go back again to strengthen our relations. Mainly, meaning the defense of human rights, and mainly our commerce with the United States. We need some exchange also in ICT. We are looking forward to have the best universities from North America, from the United States, here in our country, mainly in Maldonado, in Punta del Este, and I think we will go on in good terms.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're getting some follow-up questions because you mentioned China, and also similarly because of the Iranian connection to Venezuela, on what your perspective is on Uruguay's foreign policy, given the COVID-19 crisis and of course the situation in Venezuela, as to how Uruguay should be approaching relations with both Iran and China, and if you have thoughts on how the global community should be handling these two, both powers and controversial countries given the current circumstances.
Firstly, the world will never be the same again. And all of the governments will restart, and that is, I can understand it, thinking about their internal affairs. Health, education, and economics. When we can reopen in a new mode our international relationships, we have a strong bond with China, I insist, meaning commercial affairs. What I can tell you about Iran and other countries, our voice will be heard in the UN and in other places when it comes to the menace of aggressions, when it comes to weapons, when not paying attention to such recommendations, when in places or institutions that Uruguay takes part.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're getting a bunch of questions following up on your beautiful descriptions of your experience in Israel and also your comments on Hezbollah. And they're all related to Israel, so I'm going to try to synthesize them. Shimon in London is asking about what you see as next steps in your relations with Israel. Do you have certain goals that you're looking to see in terms of the bilateral relationship? And do you expect Uruguay to follow in some other nations thinking in terms of moving its embassy to Jerusalem?
If I understood your question, our bilateral relationship with Israel is excellent. We have nearly doubled our commerce with Israel, our exportations, our exports. When I went to both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, I visited some universities. We have a good relation with Tel Aviv, la Universidad Hebrea. I went to Bar Ilan. And once again, I think the know-how, people in ICT there can give us good advice, can help us developing more our country in that issue. I think that we can, well, I asked the Israel's ambassador in Uruguay, and when I can to people in the Israeli government to strengthen that relationship in what Israel's made that miracle of the startup nation and what's today in that activity.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask one more question, and being mindful of and respectful of your time, Dina, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We're actually getting a bunch of questions from people who live in Uruguay, from the Jewish community and others, who are sending very nice messages and thanking you for your strong leadership since you took office. And many of them are asking specifically about your vision. You mentioned, of course, your priorities of commerce with the United States, but also the current economic hardship. So how do you see Uruguay specifically exiting from the current economic crisis?
You know, when we were in campaign, our economic program was one, we had a big unemployment, like 10.6% in February. We have a fiscal deficit that's important, 5%. Our external debt is big, and investment was going down. And we had a program that meant that the government had to be very careful with public resources and start a process where investment come back to Uruguay. And people invest if they want money. And that's a job not to assure them that they will make money, but the bureaucracy or the taxes or whatever means similar to that are not high enough, so the investment comes down. After this coronavirus, when the coronavirus came, our program made it more urgent, these measures. But we cannot put them in practice today because the government is spending. The government is taking credits. The government is giving credit for some small enterprises so they can survive in this process. So when we come out of this pandemic, we had to make a stronger effort over what was our platform during the campaign. So I think that both investment, taxes, and jobs are the three things we have to combine. We have to stimulate people investing and giving jobs. And that's the thing we have to move, is what we do in not only taxes, but other resources that the government get from the investor, from the people who want to invest in our country.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dina, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Belle. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for this incredible opportunity to hear so many perspectives on so many issues of shared concern. Thank you so much for your candor, for your time, for your friendship. AJC remains a steadfast friend to you and to the Uruguayan people, the great country. And we very much look forward to traveling to Montevideo very soon. You know, we will be there. We know that we will be there very soon, and wish you the best in your presidency. and that you overcome all the challenges before you. Thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you, Dina. It was very nice to see you. It's always nice to see you. We'll try to do our best. We'll try to do our best.
Thank you.
Say hello to other people. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Mr. President, and thank you, Dina. I also want to thank our audience for joining us and showing your commitment to the topics discussed here today. In these unique times, while so many of us are separated from our families and our friends, AJC is still bringing us together on the issues that matter. Please consider making a donation to AJC so we can offer you more programs like this one, and so we can continue to strengthen critical partnerships for the Jewish people, Israel, and the United States, and to advance the common values that unite us all. Visit ajc.org/donate. Our next Advocacy Anywhere program will be Friday, May 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll be joined by award-winning author Yossi Klein Halevi to celebrate Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, and the Jewish connection to Jerusalem and the reunification of the city at the close of the Six-Day War. To register for this program and stay up to date on Advocacy Anywhere programs, please visit ajc.org/advocacyanywhere. Please stay safe and healthy. Goodbye.